of are layer 1 and layer 2. So you've got the base Bitcoin blockchain, and then you have almost everything else on top of that. So you've got Liquid and Lightning as two other networks that are used as layers on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. So what that means is that in order for me to interact with Lightning or Liquid, I need to first purchase Bitcoin and have Bitcoin on the base chain, and then I can move to these other layers. So in Bitcoin, you have two things that interact, and you have Bitcoin, the asset, so the coin and the thing that we buy to store our life savings or our savings in. But there's another part of the puzzle, which is the blockchain. So there's the Bitcoin blockchain, and there's Bitcoin, the asset that can be transferred using the Bitcoin blockchain. This is the Bitcoin blockchain. And in theory, it's really just a history of transactions. Every time that someone transacts on Bitcoin, it will be shown in a block where you see a crazy amount of transactions. Here in this block specifically, we see 3,000 transactions happening at once. And what happens here is when a block gets confirmed, it is added to a chain of blocks, right? So this is a historical ledger of all of the Bitcoin blocks to the beginning, to block number 1, to block number 0, really. So how do these blocks get confirmed, right? So what happens between here and here? Because these blocks are unconfirmed. Well, what happens is that when we construct a Bitcoin transaction, we select how much we want to pay to have our transaction confirmed. So if you pay a fee that is higher than what everyone else is paying, then you will get put in the first block here. Why? Because as a miner, if I have a miner, I'm going to look to approve or mine the transactions that will yield me the most reward. So if people pay me a higher fee, it's not a bribe, but it's like a toll, right? But it's like a bidding war. Like, hey, I want my transaction to go next. How much do you want? Well, this guy's offering you 4 sats per VByte, which is how we say or how we communicate fees on Bitcoin. And I'm going to offer you 5 sats per VByte. Okay, great. You're in the next block, right? You paid more than the other guy, so I'm going to put you in a higher priority down the list. Server has the keys to the Bitcoin, owns the Bitcoin, right? And what we call that is a bearer asset. It's with your private key. I would say that the best metaphor for mining, for miners, are they are the people that control and collect the toll fees. You know how on a highway like the 407, I guess we don't have toll people on the 407, but if there was booths, right, like on a border, they are the people that are standing there, and there's lines of people coming in. They're the people collecting the fees, the toll fees, because you have to get your transaction approved by them in order to be confirmed in the blockchain. So in the Bitcoin blockchain, there is a subsidy or something that is generated from what's called the Coinbase of Bitcoin. So a miner will, and you'll see here, so this block that was just mined or confirmed has a total fee of 0.093 Bitcoin. This is what people in total, so the 3,000 transactions in total paid the miner a toll fee, let's say, of $5,000 or 0.093 Bitcoin. But then you see here, the total subsidy and fees is what the miner itself was rewarded. Now, 3.125 of this is coming from the Bitcoin blockchain as a reward. So if you take this number and you subtract 0.093, you'll get 2.125. But basically, the miner gets whatever people that are transacting on the Bitcoin blockchain are paying him, plus whatever the Bitcoin blockchain itself is giving out at that specific point in time. And as we know, every 4 years, there's a halving period where the subsidy will reduce by half. But I just subtracted the fees from the subsidy, and I got 3.125, which is the current block reward. Now, in 2028, the block reward will half to 1.5625 Bitcoin. The miner earns from the Bitcoin blockchain as a subsidy, which is the block reward, and the fees that people pay to have that transaction confirmed. A pretty big miner, so that you'll see here, they won another block. And here they won less Bitcoin because there was less fees paid. But they will always win a minimum of 3.125 Bitcoin because that's what the Bitcoin blockchain offers as a reward to secure the network. Anything on top of that is all fees that people pay. The Bitcoin mining process is anyone can be a part of. And basically, you set up a computer that is dedicated specifically to what's called a hash. So specifically to hashing. And I would say that that is the equivalent of reaching into a bag full of numbers and seeing if you can guess the right number. And the right number comes from the block before it. So every block has a number that the next block has to find. Simplifying the Bitcoin mining process. So basically, we can compare computing power or hashing power to how many hands are going in the bag. So if I get a friend and I say, hey man, come over here and help me. So I can pull one out, you can pull a number out, and that'll give us more chances to guess the right number. But because it's completely random, someone with one hand in the bag can guess a number before someone that has three hands in the bag gets a number, right? Like, sure, the people with three hands have more chances of winning, but that because it's luck, it doesn't always mean that they're always going to win. Because you have to think about running a miner is going to incur electricity fees, costs. There's going to be a lot of heat generated from these miners. So you have to have a big enough space to disperse the heat. It's extremely loud. So, you know, again, these are all things that you have to think about when you're thinking, should I be a miner or not? And the reason that these mining farms exist, like people buy a bunch of miners, is because of what I just talked about. You know, if we have more hands in the bag trying to guess the number, then we have more chances of winning that block. So people will have 10, 20, 50, 100 individual computers or miners because they're all trying to guess the right number to win that block. Is it always profitable? No, because you can't, it's not like a business, right? Like a business that has steady cash flow. You cannot guarantee that you will win a block every day, every 10 minutes, every month. You can't guarantee it, but you have to invest upfront to get you the most chances at winning. If I'm a miner, because every single miner has to pay electricity fees or costs, what are you going to do to increase your revenue? You're going to look for the cheapest energy possible, right? It doesn't work when a country that has super expensive energy says, hey, Bitcoin miners, come over here, right? It doesn't matter because I might not want to go there if it's going to be super expensive to mine Bitcoin. So, number one, it's great that a president or the head of a country says that Bitcoin miners are welcome because that provides an open door. But when you get into that country, you have to ensure that you are somehow reducing electricity costs to incentivize people to continue running their miners in that country. So, for example, Canada has a lot of natural resources. We could definitely subsidize some mining operations if our government was smarter. So there it is. So the average cost, and I assume this is taking the costs of electricity around the world, right? So it's a very big average, but it's telling me that the average cost is $51,800, right? To win one Bitcoin. That's a lot, right? So if this is an average, then me as a miner coming into the space, I would say, okay, how how can I get this lower? And most miners look to renewable sources, so solar, wind, um, hydropower. So rivers or dams are going to be the next big one to step into the mining industry. But the whole point is that you cannot guarantee how much Bitcoin you'll make, but you can guarantee how much electricity you're going to spend. So if you can reduce that as much as possible, then that is your path to success in the mining business, is finding extremely cheap energy and mine to for nothing, right? And in Guatemala, they have a really cool way where they run a Bitcoin miner with used vegetable oil. So the guy has a restaurant, and he cooks all day, and then he goes to the back after he's done and uses the vegetable oil in this machine that will then mine Bitcoin. And that's free electricity, right? So he's not spending any money, but if he wins a Bitcoin, he's going to be pretty happy. Go anywhere. Like if there's ever a story of, miners are moving here, miners are moving there, it will always be for one reason. And it's because the electricity is cheaper wherever they went to. Now, there's some other things that can play around with that. Like, for example, in China, I think 2 or 3 years ago, maybe more, China said no more Bitcoin mining here. And China had the highest rate of miners. Then they banned mining, and all of those miners moved somewhere else. But somehow the miners came back to China because they're always looking for cheap energy. So even though the government says no, 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 you're going to find a way to mine Bitcoin wherever it's cheapest.